The tension in Indiana has reached a boiling point. What began as an ordinary postseason interview from head coach Stephanie White has erupted into one of the most divisive moments in the Fever's recent history, a moment that could redefine the future of Caitlin Clark, the franchise, and the direction of women's basketball itself. Behind the polished press conference smiles and the sound bites meant to keep the peace, something far more complicated was unfolding, something that might expose a deep fracture inside the Indiana Fever organization. When Stephanie White sat down for what should have been a reflective, end-of-season conversation, no one expected her words to light the fuse. Asked about her team's priorities heading into the offseason, White didn't hesitate. She spoke glowingly about guard Kelsey Mitchell, her leadership, her growth, her years of loyalty to the franchise. But then came the line that changed everything. She was our #1 priority last year, and she's our #1 priority this year. We want to continue to build around her. It sounded at first like a harmless statement, but within hours, fans, analysts, and even Fever executives were replaying it with growing disbelief. Build around her? Not Caitlin Clark, the generational player drafted to save the franchise? Not the rookie who had shattered attendance records, revitalized the WNBA's national spotlight, and turned Indiana into one of the hottest teams in sports media? To the Fever's front office, White's comment was more than just puzzling, it was heresy. The organization had poured millions into rebranding around Clark, banking on her star power to pull Indiana out of years of mediocrity. Her arrival had transformed everything. Sponsorships surged, ticket sales exploded, and television ratings skyrocketed. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a player, she was the franchise. So when the head coach publicly stated that the team's top priority wasn't her, the message reverberated like a thunderclap. Insiders say that within hours of the interview going live, phone calls were flying between executives, PR staff, and ownership. The Simon family, who owned the team, was reportedly furious. Not only had White undermined the organization's messaging, she had challenged its entire direction. To them, this wasn't a minor slip-up. It was a declaration of resistance. Stephanie White has always prided herself on loyalty. She's known for sticking by her veterans, rewarding those who've been through the grind. And in her eyes, Kelsey Mitchell represented the soul of that resilience, a player who endured years of losing seasons before the Fever finally began to rise again. White's loyalty to Mitchell runs deep, but loyalty and leadership don't always align, especially when the franchise's future now wears number 22. Behind closed doors, executives saw White's words as a red flag. To them, she wasn't simply praising a player, she was revealing a deeper bias. Some even believe that White genuinely thinks the Fever function better without Clark dominating the offense, a sentiment that, if true, would explain her cautious game plans and the tension that's been simmering between coach and superstar all season. The front office wasn't the only one alarmed. Players within the locker room, according to reports, have long felt the divide. Since Clark's arrival, the Fever have become a house split in two, between those who embrace her as the future and those who still cling to the pre-Clark hierarchy. White's leadership style, steady, old-school, methodical, was once seen as stabilizing. But as the pace of the league and the magnitude of Clark's talent accelerated, that steadiness began to look more like stubbornness. Even during games, observers noticed it. Clark, known for her flair, creativity, and court vision, often looked restrained, forced into rigid systems that dulled her natural brilliance. White, in trying to protect team balance, may have inadvertently stifled the very spark that made the Fever relevant again. And when White doubled down publicly, naming Mitchell the heartbeat of the franchise, it only confirmed what many already suspected. This was no longer about basketball. It was about control. To understand how high the stakes are, you have to understand the Clark effect. Since Caitlin Clark entered the league, she's changed the business of women's basketball. Her rookie season broke every measurable record: viewership, merchandise, ticket demand. The Fever went from being a forgotten team in a mid-market city to the face of a nationwide movement. Entire arenas sold out months in advance just to see her play. Sponsors that had never touched the WNBA were suddenly investing millions. ESPN aired more Fever games than ever before. Clark's face became the league's marketing heartbeat, her jersey the most sought after in all of women's sports. Every metric, every graph, every headline told the same story. Caitlin Clark is the WNBA's future. And yet within the walls of the Fever's locker room, that reality has been met with quiet resistance. Some veterans reportedly feel overshadowed. their years of sacrifice now reduced to background roles in the Clark era. Stephanie White's comment wasn't just a slip, it was a signal to those players that she still has their back. But in doing so, she may have alienated the very person the franchise can't afford to lose. The front office knows this. They've seen the data, the economic ripple effect Clark brings. Every seat she fills, every broadcast she drives, every sponsor she attracts directly feeds the organization's bottom line. So when White minimized her publicly, it wasn't just bad optics, it was bad business. One executive reportedly called it a $1 million mistake. What makes this situation even more volatile is that it didn't happen in the heat of emotion. White wasn't caught off guard by a question or ambushed by a headline. Her comments were calm, deliberate, and confident. She meant what she said. And in doing so, she may have exposed a power struggle that's been quietly building between the coach and the front office for months. For the Fever's executives, this isn't just about one coach's opinion, it's about organizational alignment. Are they a team built on legacy, loyalty, and familiarity? Or are they ready to embrace the modern era powered by the sport's most electrifying young star? White's stance has forced them to choose. The backlash came fast. Social media exploded with outrage. Hashtags like "You Build Around Caitlin" and "Fire White" began trending across Indiana. Fans who once celebrated the Fever's return to relevance were suddenly questioning the franchise's leadership. Sports talk shows debated the issue for days, while national analysts called White's comments tone-deaf and career-threatening. Even neutral fans couldn't believe it. How could a coach downplay the player who single-handedly revived the league? Through it all, Caitlin Clark has remained silent. No angry post, no subtle shade, no comment at all. Just focus. Her silence, however, has only amplified her fans' voices. They see her composure as strength, her restraint as grace under fire. And that has made the backlash against White even stronger. Inside the Fever's offices, the crisis management efforts are ongoing. PR advisors have reportedly urged White to clarify her remarks, but she hasn't. Ownership, meanwhile, is said to be weighing her future carefully. Some insiders believe that if the team wants to secure Clark's long-term commitment and avoid another offseason of controversy, they may need a new voice on the sidelines, someone who believes in Clark's leadership without hesitation. Others warn that firing White could create more chaos, feeding the perception of instability. But the reality is unavoidable. The Fever can't afford another season of internal division. Not when their future and the league's growth depends on one player's ability to thrive. The deeper truth is that this controversy isn't about Stephanie White versus Caitlin Clark. It's about an old guard versus a new era. It's about how much change an organization can handle before it fractures under the weight of its own traditions. White represents the past, loyalty, hierarchy, and measured patience. Clark represents the future, ambition, innovation, and generational talent. And now, those two forces are colliding in plain sight. The Indiana Fever's next move will define their legacy. Will they cling to the comfort of familiarity, backing a coach who may no longer fit the vision? Or will they fully embrace the superstar who has already changed everything for them and for the league? The choice is bigger than basketball. It's about what kind of organization the Fever want to be. Do they want to be remembered for resisting their own success, or for stepping boldly into the new era their star has created? One thing is certain. The fallout from Stephanie White's comments isn't fading anytime soon. The Fever's front office must now decide between loyalty and evolution, between protecting the past and building the future. And as the dust settles, all eyes will remain on Indiana, on the team, the coach, and the player who has already proven she's more than ready to lead. Because in the end, no matter how the Fever try to spin it, there's no denying the truth. Caitlin Clark isn't just their franchise, she's their future.